They laughed at her at their golden dinner table. The billionaire family called her unworthy. They mocked her in front of hundreds. But what they didn't know, the black woman they humiliated owned the future of their entire empire. And by morning, she would destroy their deal, cancel their millions, and rise as the most powerful CEO in the room. The ballroom glittered with gold light. Crystal chandeliers shimmered above white marble floors. The guests wore smiles that hid pride beneath their diamonds. It was the annual gala of the Whitmore family, billionaires known across the nation for their wealth, their charm, and their arrogance. At the center of the grand room stood Eleanor Whitmore, the matriarch. Her sons David and Charles towered beside her, laughing with investors. The family was celebrating a soon-to-be finalized $900 million merger with Johnson Technologies. And tonight, the guest of honor was the company's founder and CEO, Maya Carter, a black woman, a self-made billionaire, a name that shook the business world. Maya had risen from poverty to power through brilliance and unstoppable resolve. Her inventions had transformed industries. Her leadership inspired millions. But to the Whitmores, she was only a signature waiting to be claimed. As her car arrived, flashes of cameras lit the steps. Reporters shouted her name, Maya Carter, the genius of Johnson Tech. The crowd parted as she entered the ballroom in a long silver gown, her confidence quiet but unbreakable. She smiled and greeted every face with grace. But as she approached the Whitmore family, the smiles around her began to change. Eleanor extended her hand slowly. "Welcome to our home, Miss Carter," her tone coated with sugar, but dripping with arrogance. Maya shook it calmly. "Please call me Maya." Eleanor's eyes narrowed, perhaps uncomfortable that this woman did not bow. David Whitmore, the eldest son, smirked behind his glass of wine. "So you are the mind behind all those circuits and screens?" Maya nodded politely. "Yes, and soon hopefully partners in building the future." David's smirk widened. "We just did not expect our future to wear heels." Laughter rose from the small circle surrounding him. Maya's smile did not fade. She had faced worse. She had been underestimated by men richer, louder, and smaller in soul. As the night went on, conversations grew sharper. Eleanor whispered to her friend, loud enough for others to hear, "She is clever for her kind." Charles added, "I still cannot believe she owns that much stock. Probably luck." Maya heard every word. The words burned, but she held her posture like steel. Her silence was stronger than their laughter. The host announced, "Dinner is served. Please find your seats." Maya's name card was not beside the Whitmores. It had been placed at the far end of the table near the assistants and minor investors. She said nothing, only took her seat gracefully, while others exchanged glances and giggles. As dishes arrived, Eleanor raised a toast to partnerships that elevate those in need. "May our wisdom guide those who seek it." Her words carried poison wrapped in politeness. Maya raised her glass quietly, her heart steady, her mind sharper than ever. She looked across the long table at the Whitmore family and thought to herself, "You are laughing now, but tomorrow your empire will learn humility." The night of humiliation had begun, but the storm she carried inside was only waking. The gala reached its peak as music played softly and waiters served champagne across the glittering hall. The Whitmore sons began telling stories of their business triumphs, exaggerating every number, every victory. Eleanor smiled and applauded each tale as if her family ruled the world. Then David stood, raised his glass, and announced, "I think we should honor our newest partner, Miss Carter." Everyone turned toward Maya with polite curiosity. David's grin was sharp like a blade. He continued, "I heard Maya built her company in her garage. Quite impressive for someone without family support or formal education. Tell us, Maya, how did you manage that without laughter breaking your focus?" The guests chuckled, their laughter light, but cruel. Maya smiled faintly and answered softly, "Through sleepless nights, through failure, through faith in myself." A pause followed. Some guests looked away, uncomfortable. Others laughed again. David leaned closer. "Maybe you should teach our interns how to dream like that." Eleanor clapped her hands and laughed. "Oh, David, stop embarrassing our guest." She turned to Maya. "You know, dear, my husband always said money is like wine. It must come from a fine vineyard to truly be appreciated. I suppose your vineyard was quite small." Maya nodded and said softly, "Small perhaps, but the fruit was stronger for growing in rough soil." Her words sliced through the arrogance, but only for a second. Charles smirked and said, "Maybe that is why she likes tech rather than fashion. Some people just do not have a refinement for luxury." Eleanor giggled As if that insult were an innocent joke, the guests around them whispered. Some looked ashamed, others amused. Maya said nothing. Her silence felt heavier than gold. Suddenly, a projector flickered to life on the stage, showing highlights of the Whitmore family empire. The narrator praised their success. Then came a clip of the merger announcement, showing Maya standing beside them. A caption flashed under her photo, "The lucky partner of Whitmore." Global laughter filled the room again. Even the host looked away. Maya's chest tightened, but she did not flinch. She simply whispered to herself, "They have no idea who they are humiliating." The speech ended with Eleanor declaring, "This merger marks the dawn of a new age for us all. Let us welcome the Carter woman into our family of excellence." A servant handed Maya a smaller glass of wine, not the crystal kind served to the Whitmores. Eleanor noticed and did not correct him. David smirked and whispered beneath his breath, "Maybe she will learn where she belongs." But Maya smiled calmly. Her mind raced faster than her pulse. She had seen their accounts. She knew the truth. Whitmore Global was drowning in quiet debt. The merger was their lifeline, not hers. They thought they were saving her, but she was the one holding their future in her hand. As the music rose, she stood and said softly to the host, "Thank you for the evening. I must take my leave." Eleanor's smile stiffened. "So early, dear. We were just getting to dessert." Maya looked in her eyes and replied, "Dessert tastes best after justice." Eleanor frowned, not understanding. Maya walked out of the ballroom, every step echoing like thunder in marble silence. The guards at the gate saluted her respectfully. She got in her car and called her assistant. "At Johnson Tech, prepare the documents. We are canceling tomorrow's signing." Her assistant gasped, "But Maya, that is a $900 million deal." Maya said quietly, "No, it was a $900 million mistake." As her car disappeared into the night, the Whitmores celebrated inside, still laughing, still blind. The storm was coming, and it would not whisper. The sun rose over the city the next morning, bright and cruel. The Whitmore mansion buzzed with noise as servants rushed across halls and phones rang endlessly. Eleanor sat at the head of the long dining table, her pearls glinting under soft light. Charles and David argued over breakfast papers scattered across the table. Charles slammed his tablet in frustration. "Mother, have you seen this? Johnson Technologies pulled out of the merger." Eleanor frowned. "Nonsense. Probably a clerical delay." David shouted, "It is on every financial feed. They withdrew their investment overnight. The deal is canceled." Eleanor's smile faded. Her hands trembled slightly. "Canceled?" She repeated the word as if it were poison. David paced the floor. "I called their office. The board said." Maya Carter herself canceled it. She said, and I quote, "We do not merge with those who measure respect by bloodline." Eleanor's face turned pale as paper. "What did she say?" David repeated louder. "We do not merge with those who measure respect by bloodline." Silence filled the golden dining hall. Eleanor gripped her chair hard enough for her rings to leave marks. Outside their mansion, news vans had already begun to gather. Reporters shouted questions. The Whitmore merger collapses. Johnson Tech walks away. Investors were furious. Their stock plummeted within hours. The empire began to crack. David cursed under his breath. "We have to fix this. Call her now." "Apologize," Charles muttered. "She will not answer." David threw his phone against the wall. "She has to. We cannot afford this." Eleanor stared ahead, her pride battling her fear. At Johnson Technologies, Maya sat in her glass office, overlooking the skyline, calm and poised. Her assistant entered nervously. "The Whitmores have called 18 times. Should I respond?" Maya shook her head. "Not yet. Let them feel what silence sounds like." Her board members applauded her decision. They had always trusted her instinct. One said, "You just saved us from a sinking ship." "Their debts were worse than we thought." Maya nodded quietly. This was never about business. It was about dignity. That afternoon, Eleanor finally drove to Maya's headquarters, escorted by her sons and lawyers. The receptionist froze as they entered, their presence heavy with desperation. When the elevator doors opened, Maya was waiting in the conference room, dressed in white, sharp and powerful. Eleanor smiled nervously, pretending confidence. "Maya, thank you for meeting us. We are so sorry for any misunderstanding last night." David added, "We were just joking. You know how parties are." Maya looked at them, her expression calm. "But cold jokes can be forgiven, but humiliation cannot." Eleanor leaned forward, desperation softening her tone. "Please, we can make this right." Maya replied softly, "The contract is gone. The trust is gone, and the respect was never there." Outside their mansion, news vans had already begun to gather. Reporters shouted questions. The Whitmore merger collapses. Johnson Tech walks away. Investors were furious. Their stock plummeted. Within hours, the empire began to crack. David cursed under his breath. "We have to fix this. Call her now." "Apologize," Charles muttered. "She will not answer." David threw his phone against the wall. "She has to. We cannot afford this." Eleanor stared ahead, her pride battling her fear. At Johnson Technologies, Maya sat in her glass office, overlooking the skyline, calm and poised. Her assistant entered nervously. "The Whitmores have called 18 times. Should I respond?" Maya shook her head. "Not yet. Let them feel what silence sounds like." Her board members applauded her decision. They had always trusted her instinct. One said, "You just saved us from a sinking ship." "Their debts were worse than we thought." Maya nodded quietly. This was never about business. It was about dignity. That afternoon, Eleanor finally drove to Maya's headquarters, escorted by her sons and lawyers. The receptionist froze as they entered, their presence heavy with desperation. When the elevator doors opened, Maya was waiting in the conference room, dressed in white, sharp and powerful. Eleanor smiled nervously, pretending confidence. "Maya, thank you for meeting us. We are so sorry for any misunderstanding last night." David added, "We were just joking. You know how parties are." Maya looked at them, her expression calm. "But cold jokes can be forgiven, but humiliation cannot." Eleanor leaned forward, desperation softening her tone. "Please, we can make this right." Maya replied softly, "The contract is gone, the trust is gone, and the respect was never there." Eleanor sat frozen in her office, watching the footage play over and over again, her face pale, her hands trembling. Her empire was turning to dust before her eyes. The Whitmore name had become a symbol of arrogance and downfall. David threw his phone across the floor, shouting at his publicist, "Fix it now. Say it was edited. Say it was fake." The publicist shook his head helplessly. The video came from multiple angles. Different guests all confirmed it. David buried his face in his hand, while Charles paced like a trapped animal. Eleanor whispered, "We must hold a press conference. We must apologize publicly." But even as she said it, she knew it would not be enough. The world had already chosen its hero. Meanwhile, at Johnson Technologies, Maya stood before a crowd of journalists. Cameras flashed and microphones filled the air. She looked calm, regal, her voice soft yet unbreakable. "I did not walk away because of money. I walked away because respect is priceless." A reporter asked if she would consider returning to the deal. Maya smiled. "No partnership built on disrespect can ever stand strong. I do not build empires, I build integrity." Her words spread across the world. Within minutes, millions admired her strength. Leaders quoted her speech. Students shared her story in classrooms. News anchors called her the iron grace of business. Eleanor watched the press conference from her office. She wanted to hate her, but all she felt was shame, deep, heavy shame that crushed the pride she once wore like a crown. That evening, Maya returned home to her quiet penthouse overlooking the city. She sat by the window, the night lights reflecting off the glass. Her assistant entered nervously. "The Whitmores are begging for a meeting." Maya replied calmly, "I do not meet with history. I move beyond it." Her assistant smiled, quietly inspired by her courage. He asked softly, "What will you do next?" She replied something no one expected, "I will buy them, not to save them, to teach them." The next morning, Johnson Technologies announced they were acquiring the remaining assets of Whitmore Global for a symbolic $1. The news shook the business world again. The family that once mocked her now worked under her company name, their empire, saved by the woman they had humiliated. Reporters flooded her office, asking why she made that decision. She answered, "Because true power is not revenge, it is redemption." Eleanor called her that night, voice trembling with humility. "Maya, I do not deserve your mercy." Maya replied softly, "Mercy is not about you, it is about me." When the deal was finalized, Maya walked through the Whitmore building, the same golden halls that once ignored her. Her reflection gleamed in the marble floors, her footsteps echoing like justice reborn. Every employee stood and applauded her arrival. She did not smile widely, only nodded in quiet pride. The tables had turned completely. The girl they mocked had become their savior. The woman they humiliated had become their leader. The city watched, the world watched, and somewhere deep inside, Eleanor finally learned what true grace looked like. Weeks passed, and the noise of the scandal began to fade. The Whitmore family name was no longer a symbol of wealth, but a warning carved into every business magazine across the globe. Yet through the ashes of their pride, something new began to rise, led by the woman they once mocked. Maya Carter now stood on a grand stage before thousands at the Global Leadership Summit. A sea of faces watched her cameras, broadcasting her every word across continents. Reporters whispered, "The Queen of Grace arrives, the woman who redefined power." She stepped to the microphone, calm, composed, dressed in black and silver light, reflecting off her confident eyes. The crowd fell silent. She began. "Power," she said, "is not found in titles or money. It is found in how you treat people when no one is watching." The audience leaned forward, hanging on every word. She continued, "I have been underestimated, ignored, and humiliated, but every time someone tried to break me, I built a new path with the pieces they left behind. You cannot steal dignity from someone who knows their worth. You cannot silence a voice that speaks with truth." The hall filled with quiet respect, no applause, yet only hearts beating faster. Maya looked up at the bright lights and spoke softly again. "The world does not need more rich people. It needs more right people, people who can build without breaking others, people who lead without pride, people who know that real strength comes from kindness." Then she paused, her voice lowering to a whisper. "I was once told that I did not belong at the table, but I did not argue. I built my own." The crowd rose in thunderous applause. Cameras flashed. People shouted her name, Maya, Maya, Maya. Across the world, television screens showed her speech. In homes, classrooms, and offices, everyone felt her words like fire and pieced together. The little black girls watching saw a reflection of what they could become, not a symbol of struggle, but of victory. Back in her office later that evening, Maya sat by her window again, staring at the city skyline. Her assistant entered quietly. "The Whitmores sent you flowers with a note. It says, 'Thank you for saving our people.'" Maya smiled softly. "Forgiveness is a choice, and I choose to move forward." She turned to her assistant and said, "Tell the staff to donate the flowers to the children's hospital. Beauty belongs where it can heal, not remind." Outside her window, the city lights sparkled brighter than ever. Her journey from the shadows to the summit was complete. She closed her laptop, the screen glowing with her final quote for the world. Her story spread beyond the boardrooms. It became a lesson, a legend, a light for everyone who had ever been told they were not enough. And as her company grew stronger, every headline carried the same truth. Never underestimate the woman you tried to humiliate. She might own your future. The crowd, the cameras, the cheers faded, but one message remained echoing in hearts everywhere. If you believe in dignity, if you believe in rising after being pushed down, then remember this story. Like the video, share the message, and subscribe for more stories that prove respect always wins.